Welcome everybody, even though it's not.
Raise your hand.
Sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and what you say?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great.
Please have a seat. Your witness stand.
Good evening. Would you please state your full name for the jury for the record?
Enrique Bravo.
And Mr. Bravo, what do you do for a living?
I am a Miami-Dade TV producer with the police department, Miami-Dade Police Department.
And how long have you been doing this?
20 years.
And so what are some of your duties entail as part of that position?
We do everything from training tapes to documentation of ongoing events, live events, giving public service announcements, you name it. If it's pertaining to the police department, we videotape it, I videotape it.
And on January 31st, 2012, were you working as a police department cameraman?
Yes, I was.
And was there somewhere in particular that you were sent to film or record?
Yes, I was sent to downtown Miami for the Occupy Miami movement.
And was there any particular reason that you were sent? I mean, are you sent to only particular kinds of events to document, or can you tell us a little bit about the kinds of events you go to?
Well, I've been going to events. I volunteered with the department for 6 years, from 86 to 92 when I got hired. And I've covered events from the papal visit all the way through every major event that we've had, hurricanes, riots. I worked at FTAA, went to Pittsburgh for the G20 summit, and then the last one I did was Occupy Miami to document basically police operations.
Okay. Now, what was going on that night?
That night was supposed to be the eviction of the Occupy Miami movement that was in front of the government center.
And who was being evicted from the government center?
The protesters that were camped out in front of the building.
And why do you call them protesters?
That's what they were doing. They were protesting.
And as far as you know, we'll limit this to what you saw. But the protesters that you saw, what kinds of people were they? Were they young or old?
It was a good mixture, mostly young people.
Okay. And as far as their demeanor, were they angry and aggressive, or were they passive, or?
Some were a little bit of aggressive. Some of them were very vocal, very animated. So there was a good mixture of aggressive and passive.
Were they dressed in any particular way? Is there an Occupy uniform, or were they just dressed?
No, there's no uniform.
Okay. Now, as a police cameraman, do you wear a specific uniform when you go to events?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
It's usually, well, kind of what I'm wearing now. It's cargo pants, t-shirt, ballistic vest, helmet, just protective equipment.
Okay. You said a ballistic vest and a helmet. Why do you wear those things?
For my own protection. But I never know what I'm going to face.
Does the ballistic vest and helmet help other police officers know that you're with, or you're there with law enforcement?
Yes, absolutely. And it's plainly marked as police.
And do you wear any other credentials that identify you as being with law enforcement, or is it just the uniform?
It's just a uniform. I have my credential, but that could tend to break off and get lost in the melee.
Now let me ask you, besides you filming on behalf of the Miami-Dade Police Department, were there other media there that night?
Yes, there were.
How do you know that?
I saw them. There were live trucks, there were cameramen, there were radio reporters. They were all over the place.
Was it just a range of national, local channels, or was it specific local channels, or was it just a range of news channels that were there?
It was a range of news channels. I saw trucks from I think Channel 4, Channel 10. I don't know if Channel 7 had a marked truck out there, but I saw most of the local news channels were there.
And to your knowledge, the other media that were there, were they invited by the police department or the city of Miami, or what? How did they come to be allowed to be there?
It wasn't an invitation, it was an event. It was like all media, they show up at events.
Okay. Now, in your experience and on that night, when the media shows up, are they given instructions on what they're supposed to do and not do, or where they're supposed to be?
That's out of my realm as to what I do, but usually they...
Objection as to what usually happens, Judge, specifically on this stage, which I'm going to object to violence.
His role was video. police, all right? And then you're asking him a question about
Well, I can ask him what he saw that night, that's fine.
for others, objection sustained,
I'll rephrase the question.
all right?
On that night, the other members of the media that were there, where were they?
To the best of my knowledge, I did see media in front of the lines at certain points, but the majority of the time, the media that I saw was behind the police lines.
I mean, it sounds like the majority of what you're seeing that night is just through the
Pretty much.
viewfinder of your camera.
Yeah, pretty
Is that-
much. My world is a 4x4 screen.
Okay. So let's talk about what you saw that night through that little 4x4 screen. Did you see someone who later came down to you, the defendant in this case?
Yes.
Did you see that person in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Would you please point at that person and identify them by an article of their clothing?
Light green suit, tie, sitting on the table here next to the attorney.
I give defendant by article for the, you have,
Please let the record reflect that the witness identified the defendant. Now, Mr. Bravo, when was the first time that night that you saw the defendant within the frame of your camera?
The first time I saw him was when I first got out there to document. There was one thing that I keyed on, not necessarily that he was a cameraman or that he was out there shooting. The one thing that I keyed on was the fact that he was dressed in black and had a black bandana covering his face.
No, let's stop right there.
Judge, I'm going to object, ask him sidebar.
okay, come start.
I want to talk about the media that was there besides you and how you were able to identify them as media. Were they wearing badges or credentials?
Some media were wearing their station credentials. Again, my area of responsibility really wasn't to deal with and watching the media. It was more to deal with the police operations and also to be careful as to what I was doing. So I kind of have to shoot with one eye open, pay attention to what the police is doing, but also pay attention to what's happening around me for my own safety.
I understand that. So then let's get back to what we were talking about, and that was when you first came into contact, when you first saw, rather, the defendant.
Right.
So let's begin there again. So when was the first time?
Again, when I first went down there and I keyed on an individual that was in black with a black bandana, and immediately that set off alarm bells with me because
Objection, non-responsive, narrative.
I'll direct the witness.
Move on. Sustained.
Now, you said that caught your attention. When you saw the defendant within the viewfinder of your camera, where was he?
He was on the field. It's hard for me to describe it.
Well,
but
what I'm trying to ask you is this: was the defendant behind police lines when you?
Objection, that's a leading question, Judge.
It's a yes or
It's
no.
overruled.
Was he on the side of the protesters?
Yes, he was.
Objection,
And what happens
speculation.
next?
Overruled.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry about that. What happens next? You said that you see him standing there. What's he doing?
Well, he's videotaping us. He's videotaping whatever we're doing. Again, once I keyed on him, I did some close-ups just to identify it. Again, back to the dress that caught my attention. I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Well, I'm going to ask you about what you saw as far as his contact with, if any, with the protesters there. Did you see the defendant having any contact with the Occupy Miami protesters?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us about that?
It started when I was videotaping Director Loftus speaking to, I guess, two of their leaders. A little bit later down the line, I saw Mr. Miller further down when there was a round enclosure, and he was standing there with one of the leaders that had been talking to Director Loftus and was apparently taking direction from him.
And let me just ask you, because you said he was
Did apparently
speaking with
taking,
Director Loftus.
I'm going to object, that's
Objection
a speculation.
sustained.
How did you know that
And Judge, I'm gonna ask for that the jury disregard that comma.
Curative?
Yeah.
All right, panel members, you are not to, you're instructed not to assume that there were any directions coming from some leader of the Occupy Miami group. The testimony is is limited to limited observation powers of this witness.
Did you know for a fact that the defendant was speaking with one of the leaders of the Occupy movement?
Yes,
How did you know that?
I videotaped it.
And how did you know that the person he was speaking with was one of the Occupy directors?
Because I had, before videotaping that, I had videotaped him and another young lady that were getting the exact play-by-play from Director Loftus as to what was going to happen that evening.
Sorry.
And Mr. Bravo, when you were videoing, as you just said, the defendant having some sort of interaction with this leader of the Occupy movement, what did you see? What did you see happen?
What I saw was Mr. Miller shooting. The leader came up to him, started talking to him. They were in very close proximity, at which point Mr. Miller looked away, and if I remember correctly, the leader was pointing and Mr. Miller was looking towards where he was pointing and nodding his head.
Okay. Sorry.
Now, did you see Mr. Miller again that night?
Yes.
And when was that?
Well, there were various times. There was one in particular where he was challenging the line. We were on the sidewalk and the order was given for everyone to be off the sidewalk. And we had our line set up on the sidewalk. Mr. Miller was challenging the police officers as to why he couldn't be on the sidewalk. At one point, he looks directly into my camera, makes eye contact with my lens, and says, "Sir, why can't I be on the sidewalk?
And
Can I be on the sidewalk?"
Did you respond?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because it's not my job to respond. I'm not there as a participant. I'm there as a third-party observer, just to document what's happening.
Now, you've been a police cameraman for 20 years, right?
Yes.
And in your opinion, is that what a cameraman does? Documents the story as opposed to becoming a part of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. You're there strictly as an observer and not as a participant.
Now, you just said that the defendant asked you to get behind this police line. Did you personally see the defendant ask any other police officers if he could get by them?
Yes.
And did they let him through?
No. As a matter of fact, they didn't answer him either.
And do you know why they wouldn't let him through?
Because the lawful order was given for
The action as to
everyone
what
to
a
be off the
lawful order is,
sidewalk.
Your Honor.
Did they let him through that line?
No, they didn't.
Were there any protesters or any non-law enforcement people behind those police officers?
No, sir.
Now, tell us a little bit about his demeanor when he looked in your camera lens and asked if he could get by you.
Challenging, antagonistic. It wasn't a request, it was more of a challenge as, why can't I be there? Why can't I get on the sidewalk? And it was an antagonistic relationship.
Now, you mentioned earlier these other events that you covered for the Miami-Dade Police Department. You mentioned a G20 summit. I'm assuming that's some sort of a political summit.
That was in Pittsburgh, yes.
Okay, now, at any of these other events, have you had interactions with other media or reporters? I know you said most of your time is in the little 4x4 world, but in any of those events, have you had interaction with other media, mainstream media?
No.
And to the best of your knowledge, at those events, do mainstream media antagonize police officers?
No, sir.
Okay. Did the defendant ever tell you that he was there as a journalist?
No, sir.
Did he appear to you to be there as a journalist?
No.
Now, after he was refused entry past this police line, like you were talking about, when was the next time that you saw the defendant?
The next time I saw the defendant, he actually had walked down the line and stepped on the sidewalk, at which point he was escorted off the sidewalk.
And at any point that night, did you witness the defendant being arrested?
Yes, I did.
And how did you, I mean, what brought your attention to his arrest? I mean, were you filming him, or were you off filming something else? I'm trying to understand what, you know.
I was off filming something else. Basically, I was filming our RDF, our Rapid Deployment Force, and I saw the commotion out of the corner of my eye, at which point I just ran over to where the arrest was taking place, and then I continued filming the arrest.
And what did you see when you got there?
I saw a group of police officers around Mr. Miller, and then I saw that they were trying to take off his gear. He had a lot of straps and equipment on, and they were trying to take the equipment off of him.
And once he was placed under arrest, did you have any other contact with the defendant?
No.
And did everything that you just testified to occur in Miami-Dade County?
Yes, sir.
One moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I just have a couple more questions for you. When you're seeing the defendant being arrested, when it catches your attention and you go over it, is the defendant saying anything?
Yes, he is.
What's he saying?
He's saying, "Don't choke me, don't choke me, you don't have to choke me."
Don't choke me, don't choke me. And could you see exactly what was going on, or was your view
Yes.
obstructed in any way?
No, it was completely clear.
And was the defendant being choked at all?
No, sir, not at all.
Was he saying anything else?
I think it, I don't know, I don't remember exactly, but something like "take it easy," and the "don't choke me" is what really caught my attention, because there was, you know, they were actually being pretty ginger, trying to take his equipment off.
And was his camera filming that?
Yes, sir.
And you were filming that?
Yes.
Any further questions?
Your witness.
Mr. Bravo, your job is to document police procedure?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's what you were doing that night, you were just documenting the procedures, correct? All right, is that also to prevent, I guess that's kind of like a way to preserve evidence in case the police department gets sued?
But yes.
Okay, so it's kind of a, just in case something happens, somebody gets hurt, you guys are able to document and show, for, I guess, for a civil trial or something, what happened.
Right.
You say some of the protesters were aggressive.
Aggressive verbally.
Okay. Mr. Miller ever shouted any threats that you heard?
Not threats.
Okay. He, you said the media had no invitation to the event, they just showed up.
As far as I know.
Okay. And it's your opinion he wasn't media?
Yes.
Okay. Blogging, do you consider blogging media?
I
form of
don't,
media.
pardon me?
A form of news or media?
It's a medium. I don't know if it's mainstream media.
Okay, so you're not sure.
No.
Do you know, have you ever heard of Miami Beach 411?
No.
Ever heard of Barnes & Noble?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Do you consider them forms of media?
Barnes & Noble, I
Objection,
consider
Your
them-
Honor, relevance. I'm not sure how Barnes & Noble is relevant to this case.
Specifically as the Miami Beach 411, you said you haven't heard of them?
No.
Okay. You said that Mr. Miller had some contact with the Occupy Miami protesters?
Yes.
Do you know what he said to them?
I have no idea.
This leader organizer person, do you know what he said to them?
No.
Okay, so you don't know if he was taking orders from them?
No.
Do you know how many people spoke to that gentleman, the leader organizer?
I have no idea.
Okay, other than Mr. Miller, did you see anybody else talk to him?
I wasn't paying attention to them.
People that, you identified one other person, that's the director.
Director Loftus.
Right, he
Yes.
spoke to the director. The leader organizer person?
Yes,
Okay, and the leader organizer wasn't a threat to you at any point during the protest?
no, he wasn't.
And he wasn't a threat to Mr.
Loftus,
Loftus?
not to my knowledge.
To your knowledge, did the leader organizer order any of the protesters to direct any violence towards the police?
I can't answer that, I have no idea.
Okay, so there's no significance to Mr. Miller talking to the leader organizer.
As far as what?
Specifically, the significance of you mentioning to the jury that he was talking to them, trying to infer that he was part of the protesters. What's the significance of that? You don't
Well-
have, there's no significance, is there?
Well, what I saw and what I videotaped was Mr. Miller, and if you look at the video, apparently taking direction. When somebody is talking to you and he's pointing at something and you're looking and you're nodding, as far as I'm concerned, there's some kind of interaction going on there.
You could have just been pointing out a shot.
Maybe,
Somebody being arrested.
could be.
So you don't know. You're guessing, correct?
I'm just going by what I saw.
You say some media were credentials, is that right?
That's correct.
Some media don't.
That's correct too.
Now, you were there, so you know some of this. The police were trying to get people off the streets, correct?
That's correct.
That's because they could get hit by cars. It's a potential hazard to be standing in the middle of the street.
Your Honor, objection, he's not there as a police officer, he's there to document this.
Just going-
You heard police officers telling people to get off the street.
Yes,
And like you assume that Mr. Miller was up to no good talking to the leader organizer, you can assume that that was for the safety of people on the street, correct?
Again, Your Honor, objection.
just going-
Mr. Miller's trying to get onto the sidewalk, correct?
yes.
Did the police have an exclusive deed to the sidewalk that they were standing on?
Objection, Your Honor, he's there as a police cameraman, he doesn't know if the police have an exclusive deed.
Or right?
Just going-
Do you know if they have any specific right over that sidewalk?
As far as I know, the protesters were giving a lawful order to stay off the sidewalk.
So if Mr. Miller wanted to be on the sidewalk to avoid being on the street, you find a problem with that?
No, I don't, because that street was shut down.
Okay. So when Mr. Miller wants to be on the street, I mean on the sidewalk, and he's asking to let you get, or did he ask you specifically?
Well, he made contact with my camera, yes.
And
And
he-
I contact with my camera, which I'm assuming he's talking to me.
And he asked you, why can't I stand on the sidewalk?
That's correct.
You guys weren't letting him get on the sidewalk.
That's correct.
Okay. Why?
That wasn't up to me.
What's unsafe about standing on the sidewalk?
Again, that's not up to me.
The protest was at the government center, correct?
Yes.
And you've already testified that Mr. Miller wasn't protesting verbally out loud that you heard, correct?
What do you mean protesting out loud?
Like, you didn't hear him make any protests to the police via bullhorn or verbalize anything that indicated to you that he was a protester?
No, except for the challenging the police on trying to get onto the sidewalk.
Okay. So, your word challenge, using the word challenge.
Yes.
When he asked you to step on the sidewalk, you're interpreting that as a challenge.
Yes. No, he wasn't asking. It wasn't a may I.
Was he told specifically at that moment he could not stand on the sidewalk?
I did not respond to him.
Did you hear anybody else tell him that don't stand on the sidewalk?
No, I didn't.
So when you guys weren't letting him stand on the sidewalk, and he said, why can't I stand on the sidewalk, you interpreted that as a challenge to your authority, or the authority of the police?
Yes.
No. I don't have any questions.
Straight to you.
Just briefly, Your Honor. I'm gonna play you a short clip of what you were talking about earlier, and of course you can tell me if that is what you were talking about or not.
Mr. President, I believe the clerk has the exhibits.
No, that'll help. Yeah, this is the whole.
Right.
no trespassing on the sidewalk. Who gave the order that we can't stand on the sidewalk? White people stand on the sidewalk. Who gave the order that we can't stand on the sidewalk? Now we're doing it. Who gave the order? So you're making it break the law. You're making it break the law. Stand on the sidewalk. Why can't we stand on the sidewalk? Why can't we stand on the sidewalk? Who gave the order that we can't stand on the legal sidewalk? You know what?
What did I just show you?
That's the exact part that I was talking about challenging.
Did you hear the defendant say, why can't I be on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Did you hear the defendant say, why can't we be on the sidewalk?
Yes.
What do you think he's referring to when he says we?
I think he's referring to the protesters.
Nothing further.
Does the defense have more?
Couple questions. Officer, how many people in that area right there? Don't take it off, don't take it off. You're right.
Oh, sure.
How many people around there?
How many people?
Yeah, there's one guy with a hat.
Right.
Is this guy right here?
Mhm.
Who's this guy, do you know?
I have no idea.
Okay, is he a protester? Is he just somebody who lives around there? Is he media, do you know?
I have no idea. He looks like I would assume he's a protester.
You're assuming he's a protester?
Yes.
Okay. How about the person who's just off the shot here?
I can't tell.
Okay, so there's different people here. This,
That's Mr. Miller.
that's Mr. Miller. Okay. Now, the people that we're assuming are protesters
Yes.
includes this guy, and there's a person over here, and there may be other people around.
Right.
Okay, now, when this happened, the police had just a few seconds before gotten people out of the park,
Yes.
right? So they got them off the grass and onto the sidewalk, and then the police get them off the sidewalk.
Right.
Okay, and we heard Mr. Miller ask, well, you guys just got us out of the park, can we stay on the sidewalk, right?
I don't recall hearing you say you got us out of the park.
It's not the only kid up. Okay, right there, they just got everybody out of the park,
Mm-hmm.
and they're getting them onto the sidewalk and then onto the street.
Correct.
That's Mr. Miller asking that question again, right?
Yes.
And he said, sir.
Yes.
When he's directing himself to the police officer, he said, sir.
Yes.
Now, all these pros, and by the way, who's this guy back here with the camera?
I have no idea.
Okay, you can't tell. All right. How many of these protesters were referring to the officers as sir?
Again, I have
Conjecture,
no idea.
speculation.
Mr.
You were there, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Were the protesters, were they saying sir, or were they yelling things to the police officer?
I can't answer that. I can answer that because there's so much going on that I tunnel vision as to what I'm doing. I'm not listening to anything else. I'm listening to this because it's what's happening directly in front of me.
All right. Did you know of or hear of Mr. Miller prior to arriving on the scene?
What do you mean? Did I know who he was?
Do you know who he was?
No clue.
Did anybody indicate to you that there's this photojournalist that we need to be on the lookout for?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Did you, by the way, how did you, when you came on the scene, was there a commanding officer or somebody you reported to?
Yes.
Who do you work for?
I work for Major Nancy Perez.
Nancy Perez.
Yes.
She's the one who's in charge of you on the scene that night.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Okay. Now, this is Mr. Miller again, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. He is at the edge of the sidewalk here, it looks like, right?
He's on the sidewalk, yes.
Okay. And he's apparently speaking to an officer who's facing him, right?
I can't tell.
Or is that you in the camera?
No, I'm shooting. I'm
You're shooting.
shooting.
Okay. So this is another camera.
Possibly.
Okay. Do you know where this footage is from then? Because that's not your footage.
This footage is my footage.
Okay. I mean, then the footage where he was facing Mr.
Everything
Miller.
you're seeing on this tape is my footage.
Let me back up a second. So he's asking the officer for clarification whether or not, he understands he can't be in the park, but can I be on the sidewalk?
Right.
And he calls him sir.
Okay,
Okay, now, and he was looking in your camera directly at that point.
that's correct.
That's when you were saying, testifying earlier, that he was looking at your camera.
Yes.
Now, we just saw as you walked up on him again, he was communicating with this officer.
If you say so, I can't
You
tell.
didn't see that? Let's back it up again.
There's Director Loftus talking to one of the neighbors.
Okay. This is the person who's known to you to be the leader or one of the leaders of the movement, right?
Correct.
Okay, and he's talking to Director Loftus, right?
Yes.
That's the head honcho of Miami-Dade Police Department at the time, right?
Yes, sir.
I think he retired recently, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay, now, what is he doing right there? This guy in the gray shirt?
What's he doing?
Yeah, what's he doing?
He's looking away.
He's looking that way, it looks like he's pointing somewhere, right?
I have no idea.
You have no idea that he's pointing somewhere?
I don't know, I can't see what his arms are doing.
Where's Mr. Loftus looking?
In the same direction, it seems.
Now, does the fact that that gentleman is speaking to Director Loftus, does that make Director Loftus a protester?
No, it doesn't.
Does the fact that Director Loftus is looking in the same direction that that man is pointing, does that make Director Loftus a protester?
No, it doesn't.
Thank you, no further question.
Does the street have any?
Nothing further.